everybody. Welcome to Etcetera Live. I'm your host, Kelly Barrett. Happy Sunday to you all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Beyond thrilled, I have a guest back for his second visit on the show tonight. He is a singer, songwriter, guitarist, teacher, cartoonist, author, columnist. I'm probably not even getting everything, Rick, but I think we're off to a good start with those. The multi-award-winning, multi-platinum selling band Triumph featuring the Canadian legend Rik Emmett is in the house. Rick, hello.
Hello, Kelly.
Welcome back. I see your digs behind you are different from when you were here last Christmas. So tell us about where you're coming to us live from.
This is my new studio, and I think I'm probably going to call it Eli's Loft because this is a second floor thing. And maybe later I'll pick up my laptop so I can spin it around and I can show you what, because this has a cathedral ceiling above me and there's windows all around. And all I can see are green trees all around, lovely cedars. And the horse, Eli, is just above me.
Hanging.
So, yeah, it's an old carousel horse that I painted. And it used to be in a stairway in our old house. And then it was in the basement here for a bit. And then we renovated it and created this large box, which gave me a giant studio. And you can this is a nice angle because it goes down 3 steps and you can see what used to be my little room with all my guitars. So it's still there, but now
it's probably being used for storage or something now, probably, right?
Well, you have to walk through it to get to this space. And this has got my writing desk and the studio recording desk and my TV. And by the way, I'm giving up a Leafs game just to talk to you, Kelly. So.
Well, we feel honored and most grateful. I know it's that season. I know it's Blue Jays season. It's that time of year. So I appreciate you being with us. And so I'm just curious, Rick. So when we spoke back in October about having you back on, and you had mentioned that your family was living in an Airbnb while you were having renovations. Is this renovations that you were speaking of?
Yes, there's a great room, like we call it a Muskoka room, sort of, that's below this. So we just sort of put a big box on the back of the house that brings us out a little closer to where our pool area is. And I'd always dreamed about having a studio that was above ground. Like all my studios have either been, like Metalworks there were no windows. You're going into these places that are like hermetically sealed,
right?
Or in basements. In the houses as we started breeding and having children, and nice rooms got turned into bedrooms for kids. So then Dad, is in the basement and turning into a troll. But not anymore. Now I've got sort of what I always dreamed about, which is lovely. So
good for you. It's a beautiful space. And earlier, before we went live, Rick, you were showing me a new possession that you recently achieved.
Yeah, just over this here. So this is, I'll grab it here. This is a new custom guitar that I had made. So this is my design. It's got my name right there. See that?
Look at that.
Yeah, it's burned in there. A guy named Garen DeCassian was the builder, and then a guy named Mike Smithy of MJS Pickups was sort of the guy that curated this. And it was my design. And essentially, this takes your readers that know, or your viewers that know something about guitars will know that this looks like a Telecaster, but all of this is like a Les Paul. So the string height is for the comfort of playing is kind of like a Les Paul. So I'm really digging it, and I'm breaking it in. And the only thing I'll point out is the nut is not quite right. And of course, I'm picky. I've got a lot of guitars.
Well, it's got your name on it. You got to be picky when it has your name on it, right, Rick?
Yeah, you see, there's a little piece of. I gotta get this in the back. There we go. There's a little piece of foil under the B string because the nut needs to be recut. But other than that, I'm digging it and I'm liking it. And it's nice to know that after, I don't know, 50 odd years, 55 years of guitar, I still like it. I still love it. So
right.
Yeah, I'm jazzed. I got a new place. I got a new guitar. I'm all good.
A new toy, a new studio, a new toy. And I can see by the collection behind you, Lord knows you needed another guitar, my friend.
I know. See, and they were all pretty specific, and they all do different things. But now what I'm doing is going, okay, well, this one does this specifically, and this one has this features. I want to combine these things now. So now I need new guitars that combine. I need hybrids now. So
Right, right. And I know you're a Gibson man primarily for your electric guitars, but for acoustic, you're more like Godin.
Well, I was a Yamaha guy for years, for like 25 years. And so most of those really lovely guitars back there are Yamahas, custom made for me, and they're beautiful. Then I became a Gibson guy. And at the same time, I had a Godin relationship. And it's a Canadian company. And so actually,
Great.
you know, one of my favorite guitars is this one here. And this, I play this one a lot. People see this online, or little clips and pictures from when I was doing speaking engagements and stuff lately. This is a really lovely guitar. It sounds great and it plays great, and there's nothing about it that I don't like. But they don't make this model, this particular model anymore. They sort of discontinued it. So, yeah. But that's sort of the closest to my heart at this point. But I've been playing a lot of jazz lately, so that's part of it too, right?
Oh, cool. Branching out. Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions to you. Is there's going to be some guitar players already here dropping in tonight. And they're probably wondering what I was going to ask, what your favorite, do you have a favorite guitar, or are there different favorite guitars for different situations? And
yeah. I mean, obviously when you get a new one, it's kind of like, ooh, this is my, you know, my new baby. And so it becomes favorite nation. But, and that Godin, that's a Montreal Supreme. I really like that. But, you know, when I would play my live duo gigs with Dave Dunlop, I would use a Godin A6. It was a great guitar. And I'm partial to Tellys for recording certain things. I just did a online thing for Vintage Guitar Magazine, and I used one of my Tellys. But of course, you mentioned the Gibson thing. When I played in rock band gigs, I almost always played Gibson Les Pauls, and they're sort of an iconic guitar that does exactly what you need. The other thing is, I'm only about 5'8", so when you play guitars that have big wide asses, like a 335 or a jazz guitar, it makes you look really small on stage.
right.
So Les Paul, like guys like Frampton and me, and like when you're a small little guy, you sort of want to have a guitar that fits you, you know. So when you look at your pictures, you go, "Oh, he looks normal. He doesn't look like he's playing his uncle's borrowed guitar." Yeah.
He looks like a grown-up with a grown-up guitar.
Yeah.
Right. I hear you. I'm 5'3", just barely. So when I strap I just have an acoustic, an Ovation acoustic. When I strap that on, it looks ridiculous. It looks like I'm like a kid playing with somebody's dad's guitar or something like that.
Then you got to get a strap where you can drop it down really low and you look like Jimmy Page. Because Jimmy Page wasn't a tall guy either, and he was really skinny. So
right.
But we wore those guitars down low, and it was like, oh, rock star, you know.
Yeah, do the Ramones thing. Do the Joy Ramone thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on, Rick. Well, you know what? I first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to my official show sponsors, Writers and Rockers Coffee Company. And tonight I've got the Trooper Raise a Little Hell blend. So yeah, cool stuff, Rick. So my show sponsors, Writers and Rockers, they do Rockstar endorsed coffee blends.
Okay.
Look into that. I should hook you up and look into that. You can have your own coffee.
Okay.
So,
I'm not much of a coffee guy. Do they do tea?
They do vodka.
Oh well, I don't want to talk about that problem.
Okay, yeah, that's a whole other Oprah show, right? So anyway, Gordon Enright, he's a good fan of the show. Hi, Gordon. He's just saying hello from Toronto. Scott Little is saying awesome. Rick is the best. That's why he's here again. John Bledsoe. Good evening, Kelly and Rick. Christine Danis is saying just an honor to be watching. You've been a big part of her life, Rick, and she just feels honored to be here. Yeah. Lee Canfield. Lee Canfield is a diehard fan of the show and a good friend of mine. He always has something good to say. He's saying, hello, Kelly and Rick. Welcome back, Rick. I caught the first show. So informative, inspiring, and entertaining. Just wanted to say again, been a fan since I was 15, and here I am 60, listening to Just a Game in its entirety.
Good for him. What excellent taste he's made throughout his life.
Good to go, Lee. So in closing, thank you for all the memories and music, Triumph, and your solo material. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless. I hoist my glass of wine.
Oh, nice, great.
Well, cheers.
Wait, let me get I'll get my water. Here we go.
Grab your water.
Yeah, I got my water. There we go.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, cheers. She's got Red Bull there, people. She's crazy.
It's Red Bull. It's not whiskey. It's Red Bull. I'm doing the Red Bull thing tonight. Oh, okay. So this is cool. So my good friend, my bestie, Leanna Murray, who happens to be in my basement right now, they're visiting, and so they're watching the show from another level in my home here. One can never have too many guitars. I think Rik would agree to that.
Absolutely. Well,
Uh,
it can get ridiculous, when you start to have dedicated rooms and closets and floors for them, then maybe you've got an issue.
right, but why not? What else? What are you going to collect as a guitar player, right? You've
Yeah, and
earned the right to have 1,000 guitars.
you get to a certain point, like, of course, when you get endorsement deals with companies, that they're just feeding your addiction and your sickness. But I have been a good boy a couple of times in my life where I've purged myself and said, okay, we'll give them to school programs. I'll give them away for charity auctions, that sort of thing. And so I get rid of a bunch, and then, but slowly, they start accumulating again. I don't know where they breed. I think, and when they're in their closets, in their cases, they're having little babies. I don't know. Anyhow, so yeah.
Are you the guy that gets a new guitar and hides it from his wife? Are you that guy?
No, my wife has been pretty good about that. I think she understands that this is the one horrible, terrible disease. Guitar acquisition syndrome, GAS. So
there's a name for it.
Yeah, but it's not so bad, really, if that's all it is. I don't drink. I don't carouse. I've never given her cause for jealousy other than,
the guitars
made with 6 strings and a bunch of wood frets. So anyway.
Right. We love that about you, Rik, and I'm glad you brought that up because it was going to be one of my questions further down. Is you really were kind of different than a lot of the other people in this industry because you really, really never fell into that trap of, the hard drugs and the drink and the shenanigans, that most people on this journey tend to at least dabble in. You always kind of.
I have a few. We're going to get around to the point where you're going to ask me about my memoir, which is coming out, which I finished and delivered, by the way. But and the whole thing about rock star, which of course is in the title. So I might as well get into promoting the book now. The title of it is It OnThe Line, so because I'm going to tell the truth about myself. And then the subtitle is A Backstage Pass to Rockstar Adventure, Conflict, and Triumph. So we're getting it all in there so that all search engines will find whatever people might be looking for. But the idea of rockstar, it's a weird thing to me. Like, I never felt like I had decided that I wanted to become a rock star. I just loved playing music. And it just so happened that, the time that I was born, the things that were happening, rock music was the way I was going to earn a living. And then I was not very shy. I was, a pretty cornball kind of guy, so that if what it took was to wear a jumpsuit and run around and strike poses and make faces, I was into it. It was fine. But it was really it was my job. It was this thing that allowed me to be able to be writing songs and playing guitar for a living. And that was great because then that made it so that I could get married, have kids, buy my parents a house, do all of these kinds of things that I don't want to talk about the money because I wasn't really in it for the money, but that was the thing that it sort of enabled the whole family thing to be able to happen for me in a big way. So, but obviously when I'm in the business, you do see guys that are becoming victims of, because they didn't get into it just because they loved music. They kind of got into it because they really did want to become famous. And so that's a weird thing, that if what you want is fame, that's the thing that can kind of poison you, because then, and I talk about this in the book, John Updike is a very famous writer, and he talks about the mask. You put on a mask, celebrity is a mask that eats into your face. And,
that's good.
Of course, Jim Carrey made a really cool movie along those lines. But it's true that if what you did was get into it because you wanted to be famous and you wanted to have all the trappings of, people calling you rock star, that's what you really like. The problem is you're going to grow up and grow old. And, then once you get the
Then
other
what?
side of 45, 50, yeah, you know, it's so, you know, I think I always had a fairly well-adjusted sense of who I was and what I did. It was just that the world didn't necessarily perceive me that way because they went, oh, lasers and flashpots and jumpsuits and,
Oh
you know,
my.
and, oh, he puts all this product in his hair. Oh, you know, he must be a rock star. You go, yeah, well, that was the gig. You know, that was the job. Yeah.
Right. And I love that about you. I think it, you know, the one thing I remember this from the last time you were on the show, which was, I think it was last Christmas, and we were under major lockdown. I remember that because like there was nothing happening. I don't even think you could fly possibly at that point, but we were heavily locked down and you found all these other ways to let that creativity come from you but always staying true. And you've always stayed true. And we'll get to this a little farther down into the interview, so much so that it was one of the reasons why you left the band. And I really agree with you, Rik. I think if you're in it for the fame and the adulation, it's a dangerous road to go down because you're right. When you get to a certain age or that ends, it's like put all your eggs in one basket and watch that freaking basket closely. Because, you know, if that goes away and that's how you've defined yourself, you know, it really, I think it can be a pretty shallow existence because it's very surface level.
Yeah, you know, and that can be a bit of a cliche too, Chris, because there was the commercials that ran at the Super Bowl, and you got Ozzy as if he got a regular day job in a trading company, and you know, Billy Idol is walking. So here's these guys that truly are the rock stars that inhabit the character, the persona, and you know, they're all getting old, but they're still doing what they're doing, and it works for them, but. There's really only sort of a handful of people that are like that, you know. And the thing was, I never really had the burning ambition that, you know, I just recently read an interview of John Bon Jovi, and like, you know, he's had a great life, and he's had, you know, he owns a football team, you know, like,
right? You know, you made it well,
yeah. Yeah. So, but you know. I'm perfectly happy with a room full of guitars. I don't really need to own a football team, you know, but I don't know. I mean, there's a guy, Ryan Reynolds is a Canadian actor, and he's looking at buying sports franchises and getting involved in different, he's going to build the biggest studio that Canada's ever seen. But he seems like a pretty together kind of relaxed kind of movie star, you know, which is a different thing than a rock star, but not much, kind of the same deal. He strikes me as being just a fairly regular person that's got his head screwed on straight, you know.
He does. He does, really.
So I kind of go, hey, that's my kind of guy, you know. That's I'd like people to say, yeah, Rik, he seems to have his head screwed on straight.
I'm pretty sure they do, Rik. I'm pretty sure, and that's definitely the impression I got. Because the last time you were on the show was the first time I'd ever met you, and I remember the comments coming in about just what a decent human you were, like just personable and friendly, and there's no air of arrogance, and there's, you know. And one of the things I love, and I was going to get to this a little further down, but I'll bring it up now. So you wear a lot of hats, like and even just the things I was listing in your intro, you know, you were you know, a magazine columnist, guitar player, and you know, you taught at Humber, and you are the artistic director.
Yep, I was for about over a dozen years.
And yeah, so you teach and you write, and you're a cartoonist. And so what is it that keeps driving you to explore these different?
Should we start complaining about Canada?
What is it that drives you, Rik, to continuously grow and branch out into different projects? And is it a like you get bored? Is it an antsy thing, or is it just you just want to experience as many different creative outlets as possible?
I think I always had this creative. That was the in my book I say that's the hook I hung my hat on. You know, the creativity. It wasn't necessarily. Like, you know, some people might say, oh, Rik, what a great guitar player. But the songwriting was as important to me as the guitar playing was. And I also loved designing album covers and, you know, and as you said, you know, I ended up writing magazine columns and teaching at a college. And so the rock star thing sort of opened doors for me so that creatively I could do other things. And,
Right.
So writing a book of poetry and now writing the memoir, it's just branching out in different ways. They all really just come back to that basket of being creative. I would love to have time here in my retirement to be painting more and sketching again, like I used to do cartoons. Like when I was in high school, I was the cartoonist for the high school paper, and then in college for a little bit I did some, and I even in Triumph, like around 1980, 81, the publicist got me a gig where I did about a year and a half's worth of cartoons in Hit Parader magazine.
Oh, wow.
And it was fun. It was great. I love those kinds of things where I get a chance to, try my hand at something else. Now, I'll grant you, there are some times and some instances where I go, I don't want to get stretched too thin, and I don't want to necessarily try something where I don't feel confident that I can do a good job. So
Right.
there is a bit of ego involved in this, that creatively I
Of
want
course.
to do things that I can do well. So if somebody said, Rick, would you like to host your own baking show? I would go, no, I would not.
Not so much.
I am not good at that. I'm really, really bad at cooking. So no, I don't want to do that.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. And I think it's important to sort of stretch your, I guess you call it your creative muscle. I think it just makes you more of a well-rounded artist in general if you're, you're kind of dabbling in a few things. And so you had like, getting back to the Triumph years briefly here. So you had a dozen platinum albums, like I think from 75 to 88 with Triumph. But surprisingly, you actually had more albums as a solo artist than you ever did with Triumph.
They didn't go platinum though.
Well, there's that.
In my bio, I go, well, I made a lot more records after I left, but they didn't go platinum. But I used to, when they used to make us do a dog and pony show at the college, the first week of the school, the kids, they would try to pick who they wanted to have as their sort of mentor for the directed studies program. And so each guy had to get up and make a speech. And I go, and when it was my turn, there were these jazz guys, and I'm talking really, really heavily accomplished jazz kind of cats, and they would get up and do their speeches and stuff. And I would get up and say, well, I've never made an album that lost money. I've always got my money back when I made a record, and then the next guy would get up and invariably he would say, yeah, I've never made a record.
Yeah, right. So there's something to be said for that. And I think often and I know you'll agree to this because just the type of person you are, but it really isn't about the money so much as I think just the expression and coming up with new creative ideas and that. And I'm just curious, Rick, when you went from Triumph to then a solo career, were there challenges to not maybe having that network of collaboration behind you as you would have had with Triumph, and now you're on? Was there challenges or was it easier in some ways when you're kind of running the show?
It was easier, certainly creatively for me, because now I sort of became a benevolent dictator, and you didn't have people second guessing or having sort of art by democracy, as it were. Where
right,
like that whole thing of a lot of cooks spoiling the broth.
Yeah.
And of course, the other part of it is when you're in a band that has a lot of success, you sell a gold record, it goes platinum. Then the record company really goes, well, we want that trick again. So the Triumph was something where there was a lot of pressure for me towards the end, 86, 87, 88, where the record company was really breathing down the band's neck. It wasn't like the days that I loved, like your friend mentioned the Just a Game album earlier, 79. That was a great album for me. I really felt like as a recording artist, I was starting to come into my own. And then by, I think Allied Forces was 81. That was my favorite Triumph record of all, So those ones were, I think that the band had a spirit that I could have easily lived with for a long time. But then the politics of things changed it. And I think, careers do that. Like the success of a career tends to make the politics become a little more, I don't know, Machiavellian.
Intense, for sure. I understand that.
Yeah.
And so it was 88, I think, when you chose to leave the band. And you know, and we'll talk about the documentary here because you talk about it. And apparently it was a lot to do with Triumph, not so much just honoring your musical gift anymore. So you felt. Can you elaborate a little on that for us, Rik, about the decision to leave a hugely successful band? And
Oh boy, we seem to be frozen now.
I can hear your voice. Okay, well, we're going to give Rik a minute here, and in the meantime, I'm going to read some comments. Phil Days is saying, definitely a hero of mine. Joseph, I'll save your comment for when Rik comes back. Hey, Claudia Santiago. Hey, girl, great to see you live. I think that was for Rik. He's back. Hi, Rik. No worries. I just read some comments.
Your signal to me is slowing down, and I can't.
Can you hear me?
I can't make out what you're saying. Well, it's like it slows down, and then you disappear for a little bit, and then you come back, and so that you were getting into that Triumph business, but I couldn't hear any of it.
Okay, so I was asking. So no, that's fine, Rik. So I can hear you, and we can see you fine, just so you know. So I was curious because you had mentioned that Triumph stopped being true to your musical gift, and I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little on that. Your decision to leave.
What I would hope is that everybody will be really, really eager to want to buy the memoir, so that they get the in-depth detail of the story. But you know, I think it's funny how the writing of the memoir made me sort of have to try to come to terms in a whole different way with. And of course, Triumph had gone through the whole thing of, you know, Walk of Fame and Hall of Fame and all of these things. And we were getting along well with each other. And that was all, the negativity was sort of, you know, blood under the bridge, as Emma Thompson would describe it. But I think it's fair to say that the band was starting to evolve away from what I'd hoped the band could become. But the band was always a schizoid thing right from day one. You know, when I joined with Mike and Gil, it was very clearly Gil's band, and Gil sang half the songs, and Gil was the drummer, but Gil was also the general manager and you know, the guy that put the productions together, and he ruled with a pretty strong kind of character. So it eventually got to the point where it was like there wasn't really enough room in the band for me anymore. It really was about, you know, Gil wanting it to be what Gil wanted it to be, and Mike was going, well, I can see which side of the bread gets buttered here. Like, I know who I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote with the guy that, you know, is the money man and is the general manager. Right. Signs the checks, you know, and I don't blame either of those guys for that. Like, I don't feel any animosity about that. That was just the way things played out and the way it was. And so it was like there wasn't really anything for me to do except say, here's my, you know, my notice. I'll see you later. You know, I've got to move on. But there were, your question sort of implies the thing of, you know, the old thing of artistic differences where an artist says, there's things that I want to do that I can't do in this circumstance. And for sure I had that too. And I wouldn't argue if somebody said to me, well, that's your ego. You were on a huge ego trip. You wanted to do your own thing. I go, no, that's true. It's kind of true. I wanted to do my own thing, and my ego, I don't think it was an ego that was out of control. I think it was literally just a kind of a natural kind of a thing that for me as an artist at a certain point, you know, I mean, and then proof's in the pudding. You mentioned earlier about, I don't know, 20, 23 records, however many I made after I left. Like, there's jazz records and there's classical guitar records and there's smooth jazz records and there's singer-songwriter records and there's Latino Mediterranean spice records. Like there's so much stuff that was the stuff that I really wanted to do in my life, So I can sit here now on Kelly Barrett's Etcetera, and I can say, I'm happy. I got what I wanted. I didn't sell 10 zillion records, and I'm not like John Bon Jovi and own a football team, but those weren't the things that I wanted. What I wanted to do was make jazz records and classical guitar records, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So
right. I really would take argument with whoever said it was ego, because I think I see it more as you, because I have so much respect for the fact that you were just about staying true to yourself musically, even if that meant leaving a steady paycheck, even if, and that's putting it mildly, but even if it meant leaving this band that was hugely successful, your intentions were to stay true to yourself musically and to grow musically, and you weren't being able to do that within Triumph. And so, I don't see that as ego at all. I would think it would take more of an ego to stay with a band just because they're famous. If it was all about ego.
Well,
it takes guts to go off on your own and leave that security of a well-established band, and just because you want to stay true to yourself. So
well, I appreciate that. Thanks. In the memoir, I do talk about the fact that when I was a kid in college and I was studying music, I decided this isn't for me. I'm gonna bet on my own talent, my creative abilities, more than this academic kind of thing, where I can see there was guys in that program, that tremendous guitar players that are going to be the guys that are going to be the studio cats, and they're going to get first call for bookings and playing on other sessions and that sort of thing. Being guys play jingles and all those things. And I couldn't read music very well, but I could write songs better than those other guys, and I certainly wasn't afraid to put on a pair of spandex pants and wiggle my ass and do the showbiz thing. So I went, no, I'm going to bet on myself. So then years later, after the Triumph thing had sort of run its course for me, it was just a question of betting on myself again. And it's lovely that you would characterize it as being brave and what a great what a strong, brave thing. But it really felt just natural to me. It was, no, this is the thing that makes the most sense, that I should just bet on myself. Like, It would be no good. And, in the memoir, I talk about how, my wife and I, by the time I left, we had 4 kids. The year I left Triumph, our 4th kid was born. And I felt guilty that I had not been a good enough father to my daughters, because of the time that I had to commit. So I had to try to figure out how to restructure my life so that I wasn't going out on the road for these, long tours and having to go into the studio for these long projects that took forever. And, I didn't want that to be what my life was going to be about, So there's practical things that enter into it, and I think it wasn't so much bravery as it was just trying to be kind of practical and realistic, and I wanted my marriage to survive, and I wanted my kids to like me.
Well, hey, right, and it's got to be hard to create some type of career, family, life balance, especially when your career is being Rik Emmett. I mean, there's got to be some challenges to that, to creating that balance so that you still get fulfilled personally, professionally, but you're still having a personal life that's worth having.
I think everybody faces that challenge. I really do. Like, I don't think that makes, rock star makes it a unique thing. I don't think so. I think most folks, a marriage is not something that you can take for granted. You really have to work to make a marriage good. And you have to work to be a good parent. And we just had the grandkids here for an overnight last night, and my back is killing me. And we, didn't get much sleep because they're cute and they're lovely, but oh man, being a grandparent, it's hard work.
It's work.
But we were able to give my daughter and son-in-law, a night off. And I think from a mental health point of view, we understand that they need that,
Of course they do.
And yeah, and it was nice for us to have an overnight with the kids. I wouldn't want to have to do it too often, but
Right.
it was all right.
One night and we're good. Off you go. You just pump them
Exactly.
full of sugar and send them home. That's what grandparents do.
Good.
And so I'm curious about, because the new memoir, like the last time you were here, you had your reinforcement poems?
Reinvention.
I'm sorry, reinvention poems that had just come out. And now you have your new book coming out. And where would people be able to find that?
Well, they're not going to be able to find it until October 10.
Okay.
That was a surprise to me. Like I delivered the book about, I don't know, a month ago. And then I just had to chew through all of the, like we want to have lots of photographs. So you've got to have a nice cover. You got to have a nice one on the back cover. You got to have, and I think we're going to have like about 30 shots inside the book itself. So there's going to be a lot of photos from my family archive and special things, backstage kind of stuff. And so all that got done in the last month, and it's delivered. And then they go, yep, okay, street date, October 10th. I go, October?
What?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like September 1st or something, but okay. So anyhow, but I would imagine that at some point they'll start marketing and promoting it. This is ECW Press. That's who has it.
Okay.
And it'll be on Amazon, and it'll be
The
at your
usual.
local bookstore, all of this kinds of stuff. So there'll be a time when people can start ordering it, but they probably won't be able to get it until, we're well into the CFL.
Be ready for Christmas.
Yeah, you can get it for your Christmas stocking.
Right. And so I would imagine, there must be a pretty deep level of vulnerability that goes into writing your memoirs, as I imagine was there with writing poetry, because I mean, that's very much your insides coming out through your words. And so how do you reach that place of vulnerability where you feel safe enough, I guess, to just be really candid, telling your life story to the world?
I never had much of a problem with being honest and being candid, candid. Like I really didn't. I think that I used to teach songwriters. Your job is to get naked and get out on the high wire without a net. Like that's what you got to do. Like you have something of yourself at risk in the work that you do for your work to be able to speak emotionally to other people. So a memoir, I must admit, it was a challenge. I had no idea how hard it was. It was really hard work. And even in the 11th hour, I had to have beta readers, like friends of mine. I had to have a lawyer go through some of the stuff, the TRIUMPH chapter and stuff. And I had a good friend of mine who had been a member of parliament who sort of understood about, sticking your foot in your mouth. And I said, I think can you just read a few of these chapters for me and make sure that,
Sure.
Yeah, so it's not like I was trying to do it without, there were certain things where I had my wife read it because I didn't want to say something that she might go, how dare you say that about us?
Of course, right.
But I think I'm a fairly good judge of what might hurt people and what might be not diplomatically correct or proper, so that I can say what I want to say, but say it in a way that it doesn't do damage to others. If there's going to be any damage, it'll be to me, and that's okay. I can take it.
Big shoulders, right?
I've had a life of taking it. So.
Right. And so I'm wondering, what was the process behind making? And I would ask you this, Rik, about the documentary, the 2021 documentary, TRIUMPH Rock and Roll Machine. What was the catalyst behind doing that documentary? Was it again a desire to sort of just get the truth out there and to just tell the story from facts rather than
honestly, truthfully, I think Gil, it was just he had this burning ambition that he wanted to tell the story of TRIUMPH, and he wanted a documentary, and he wanted it to be on Canadian pay TV and cable, and I really think that was the prime motivator, was that he wanted to make sure that it got done, and more power to him. It's great. I don't think it was 100% my truth. That's why I wrote a memoir, because I think there's things that the documentary, didn't kind of details that it decided, well, we're not going to, have that in there, and that's fine, because it really was, in the end, it's the TRIUMPH story, and TRIUMPH, that's Gil's story and Mike's
Right.
story. It's not really mine, so yeah, now I have a memoir, and it is my story, and people will be able to sort of weigh between the two. But I thought the documentary was an impossible job. The guys that took it on Banger Films, and they've done,
A lot.
Yeah, Alice Cooper and Metallica,
Iron Maiden, and
Rush. They've done ZZ Top, and those guys, they've got some stories to tell.
Yes, shenanigans.
Yeah. So the TRIUMPH one, they both, the two guys, the principal guys. Oh boy, I'm gonna remember this. Mark Ricciardelli and Sam Dunn. So these two guys, the amount of work that they have to do is nuts. Sam conducted all the interviews, and I think he oversaw the script writing and everything. And Mark was the editor. And so, I mean, TRIUMPH, there was 13 years when I was in it, another couple of years after I left. And then there have been, 40 years or so, before they got to the movie. So there was all this stuff and halls of fame and walks of fame. And it was an impossible story to tell. And those guys did a really great job considering what they had to deal with,
Right.
But having said all that, it's like when you make a documentary, when you write a memoir, when you write a song, when you write a poem, you're really only choosing one perspective for your story and saying, this is my perspective, this is my truth. Right. This is what I think this documentary requires. So that's what I'm going to choose, and that's what I'm going to do. And then it is out there, but it's never going to be definitive, because truth is something where take a few steps to the right and you get a different perspective.
Right.
See it from, ask the wives what they thought, and you're going to get a different perspective than you would get from, these former rock stars sitting there in front of the camera, yak,
Right. It's very subjective, Rick, I think, because it depends, it's like when you have 3 children in a family and they all tell the story of their upbringing, and they all 3 have completely different ideas of how things were.
Yes.
It's kind of that same concept, I would imagine. It's, it's all perception depending on who you're asking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I thought the documentary did a really nice job of capturing the true spirit of TRIUMPH, in the sense that it was a band that was sort of for the people in the seats, and to give them a great concert and to give them songs that would give them their own sense of sort of motivation, inspiration, uplifting. That was the way that I saw the band, and I think that was the strongest living legacy of the band. And I think the documentary did a really good job of portraying that, of going to fans in their own houses and
yes,
interviewing them and saying, so, what does the band mean to you? And I mean, when I watched it for the first time, there were some scenes in there where I was starting to get tears in my eyes going, whoa, This is powerful stuff, so yeah, pretty good.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. My family and I watched it this past Christmas Eve, actually. I know. I was thinking, I'd say most families are watching, The Grinch or It's a Wonderful Life. Whatever. My family was watching the documentary, and I've never seen a documentary before where they involved the fans so much, and they, like you said, went to them personally and asked their opinion. I was almost misty a few times. Like it was, I thought it was really, really well done, and I really loved the part where you reunite at Metalworks. And like, what was that like? What was I was thinking, I wonder what the energy in that room is like.
It was surreal. It was literally like standing in front of a jet engine that was just, like, it was insane, the amount of positive energy that was in that room. And also just, for us emotionally, though, we hug backstage before we go on, and then we go, and it's going to be this blind reveal where the scrim drops, and there we are, and we're going to play the songs. And I'm pretty sure that like 85, 90% of the people sitting out there were going, I think maybe they're going to play. Maybe they're going to be behind the scrim, But then when it actually happens, the energy is very real. It's so real that it's surreal.
Right. It's a good way to put it.
That's really the best way to describe it. That you're going, this is like hyper realism. This is like I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to stay inside my own shoes here. It's crazy, but it was a lovely thing. It was an incredible thing to have happen in your life. That there's very few people that get that kind of a moment. And the truth of it is that I had said right from the get-go, there really should be a fan appreciation thing. And you should make sure that you get the cameras there, because that's going to be the strongest thing that you could possibly do. And so that's what they did. They put together this fan day, and there were like, I don't know, 25 cameras rolling at this moment when it was like the fans, the best fans we've got, were going, glory, glory, hallelujah.
Right. And do you think the documentary, Rik, was somewhat of a, I don't know if closure is the right word.
I think it is.
Do you get it? Yeah, I was wondering that when I was watching it. This must be a real sense of, and that's why I was curious about what the energy was like, because it was, in a sense, like just this coming full circle, and yeah. And
don't you always like it when you get that sense out of a story, or you get like that it's come full circle, that because that's kind of how life works, isn't it? I mean, the planet kind of spins around and comes back to where it was, and then it goes around the sun and it comes back to where it was, and like that's the way life works. That it circles around and it orbits around and it comes back. So yeah, I felt that the documentary really did capture that sense of, here's why the band started, and here's all the shit it went through, and then here's how it ended, but then here's how they got back together. So it was like, I mean, this is a kind of a classic documentary kind of thing anyways, right? The rise, the fall, the resurrection, that's always kind of the storyline that they go for. But it was kind of nice that in this case, the resurrection sort of brought us all back, right back to, being able to hug each other and go, all right, we made it through those songs. Great.
And we can still sit down and be in the same room together and share the story. And speaking of the whole the reunited part, was that your brother's dying wish that you reunite with the band?
Well, I mean, he had more than one, and I wouldn't want to necessarily make it seem like it was just, I think, part of the way that when we knew it was a terminal situation, and it's difficult for him, it's difficult for everybody around him. How can you make it so that that journey that's going to happen towards the end is going to be something that everybody can handle and can be comfortable with? Right. So we're sitting and having a conversation about him taking care of business, writing stories about his life, and making sure that his wife is taken care of after he's gone, and all of that stuff. What does he want done at his funeral? And then he said, you have baggage in your life too, and you should take care of it. Like, it's not just me. And I go, right. What are you doing? Are you turning this around on me? Don't turn this around on me. And he goes, no, seriously. Like, I'm a fan of the band, and you're carrying all that baggage, and I don't want you to have to. If you want to do me a favor, I think you should really try to work it out with those guys. You should be open to their overtures to, whatever, these Hall of Fame things that keep getting offered to you from time to time. You should pick up. I'm going, oh, you son of a, like.
Because now how do you say no, right?
You're going to put this on me? He goes,
no pressure.
Yeah, he goes, I wouldn't put it on you if I didn't think you should do it, and if I didn't think you could handle it. You should do it, So then, I did, and he didn't make it to see the reunion, but Yeah, I took his ashes. I put them under the stage in Sweden when we played the reunion
that's
gig
beautiful.
over there. Yeah, it was. He's a part of the story for sure.
Right. And I like to think I just really like to think he knows on some level that you did reunite. And
yeah, I
really believe that. I like to think that he knows.
Well, really good. I'm glad that you have that kind of faith. He did too, by the way. I'm not. I struggle with that. I don't have that kind of faith. I don't have much faith in an afterlife. So consequently, I tend to be pretty dedicated to try to make this one work.
Yeah.
So
it's not a dress rehearsal, right? In Gord Downey's words, one of my favorite tragic hip lines ever. No dress rehearsal. This is our life.
Fantastic.
Right?
Yeah, Gord was a fantastic writer, great front man, unbelievable. Yes.
Right. And so you've got, aside from the documentary and the new book coming out, and actually, and your poetry book is still fairly, like, you've been a busy guy because the poetry book is probably just over a year old. Reinvention poetry.
I hate to make myself sound like I'm bragging, but there's a whole other poetry book that I've handed in at ECW, which they won't put out until 2024. And as we sit here now, I've got 9.5 guitar pieces that I'm ready to start recording. So I have been a busy boy, and I did not waste the 5 months that I spent in the barn. I was writing, and
good for you.
I didn't waste COVID. I used the time to write. So
good for you. I
keep busy creatively all the time, because every day matters in that.
Yes.
I've left some stuff behind when I'm gone.
Right, exactly. And is there a film score in the works? Okay, Rick's frozen, so I'm going to take some comments here until he comes back. There's a film score in the works. We're going to talk about that if he comes back. So Dino Vizzuti. Hey, Dino, good to see you, buddy. Hey there, Kelly and Rick. I was just wondering what happened with Rik and Trifecta. You guys together were absolutely amazing. A good question, Dino. Assuming Rik comes back, we'll ask him that question. Robbie Nelson Petrie says hi from Edmonton. Hey, Robbie, thanks for joining us. And there goes Rik. So I'm going to take some more comments, and we're going to wait and see if Rik pops back in. Agnes Mitchell says hello from Texas. Forever fan, love the book also. William Pern. Oh, William's given us the score. It's 5-1. We're not sure for who, but Mark Chichkin is Mark Chichkin from Elix is in the house. Hey, Mark. Hello, Kelly. Hello, Rik. Huge fan. Thank you for all the great songs. Love your playing and vocals. Seen the Blinding Lights show at Cattle Hall in Detroit. Ours was in the Joe Louis Arena, but Lasers show was my first, and the head on the roof of the arena from Lasers was amazing. Blew my mind. Anyway, respect to you, Rik. Cheers, guys. Thanks for the great show, Kelly. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for popping in. Renita Zintel, my first guitar, Norman S30. I still have it. Not a good choice for a girl guitarist. Stephanie Blackmore says Rik is her Elvis. Thanks, Stephanie. Leanna Murray's going to look for the book. She says, great title. There's a ton of comments here, and I wish Rik was here for them. I think, there he is. The internet gods are on our side. So I'm going to add Rik back. Hopefully he can.
I'm back.
Rik, you're back.
Oh, dear.
The wonders of technology,
There's
right?
Kelly.
Hi. We just read some comments. I can hear you. I can see your lovely face. We knew you'd be back. So, Mark Gladstone from Prisms in the house.
See me. I can't see Kelly.
You can't. Well, I think can you guys see us out there? If you could just drop a comment to let us know you can see us both. I can see you.
If I'm still being recorded, and it's
still
working at your end, I should say this. When the screen went on me, StreamYard said, we got no internet. And so then on another window on my browser, I went to Google, and I've got internet. So I think the problem might be at StreamYard's end.
It must be, because mine's perfect. My internet here is perfect. Mark Gladstone from Prism is in the house, and he is saying, hey, Kelly, hey, Rik, loved your music forever. Great show, Kelly, as usual. Thank you, Mark. The guys from prison were just here a couple of weeks ago, actually. So much respect for the authenticity and for being that role model. That's from Agnes Mitchell. Are you still there, Rick? Can you hear us? I'm just trying to find a comment to tell me if somebody could comment whether or not they can see us both. I know okay. Thank you, Christine Dennis. Yes, you bet we can see you. Still hearing you both. And we've lost Rick again. Every host's worst nightmare. But you know what? We're going to hang on here for a few minutes. I'm going to read some more comments. We have had Rick for 55 minutes. So I think if we can get him back. Rick! I'm just yammering away.
I was talking too.
But apparently they just said that you were frozen, Rick. Mark Chichkin from Helix is in the house. He was saying that they can see us. You were frozen. You're frozen, but they can see us. But they can hear us and they can see us right now. Okay. So I was going to ask you, and I'll ask this quick in case we lose you again. Can you tell us about the music score? Because that's another new project that you've been working on. Oh, man. Hi, Dale Harrison. Oh, Dale. No, a former Etcetera guest. Rick is frozen again. Yeah, we know that. Hi, Tammy George. Michelle Truman. Beautiful. Oh, speaking of Michelle Truman, I got to give a shout out to my girl, Michelle. What an amazing show she put on in Calgary on Friday night. Michelle Truman was there, of course, with Toronto. Leanne was there. The Headpins were playing. It was just an amazing night. So, Michelle, thank you for an amazing night of entertainment. I don't know. I think we've lost Rick for the night. So I don't know what to do. I think I'm probably just going to sign off now. And I don't know what else to tell you guys because, I don't know, my internet is fine. Not sure where the problem is, but you know, we got to hear about the book and we got to talk about the documentary. And I think as far as an interview goes, you know, we got some of our questions answered and we got some good information. The only drawback is that I'm going to have to skip my what I call my Barbara Walters portion of the show. You know, where I ask what makes him happy and what we can look forward to in the future and what he's most proud of and that sort of stuff. I'm pretty sure Rick would say he's most proud of his family because I remember I asked him this question when he was on last year. So, yeah, so I think I'm just going to wind down the show and thank everybody for watching. I don't know if Rick's going to come back or if we're going to be able to keep him. But, well, that's showbiz. What are you going to do when it's live? That's live. But truthfully, I wouldn't have it any other way than doing live shows for you guys and seeing all your real-time comments. So, yeah, that's my interview with Rik Emmett. Thank you guys for tuning in. Next week, join me. Darby Mills, Canada's Queen of Scream, will be here. You're not going to want to miss that. So have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe. Be really nice to each other. And we'll see you soon.